give it to Corey so we can get moving a little bit. So, hey everybody, thanks for coming. My name is Aaron, and I'm one of the people helping to run and I helped start this little project called Dharma Gates. We're a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to connecting young people and more people generally to different teachers and opportunities for deep meditation practice, and the sources of wisdom that exist in our culture already, highlighting lesser known but deep voices. And it's our view that these tools and practices are essential in this time and place that we're in facing the kinds of challenges and adventures that we're going to have in this particular lifetime of ours. So all of our events are designed to be a gateway, and invitation to take the practice farther. So if you have a powerful experience and are interested in learning more about what's out there, we have a advising forum, dharma-gates.org. I can post the link. It's a little advising, and we will just talk to people one-on-one or help do our best to connect people to resources for deeper practice in the direction that they're called to go. So if you're interested in what Corey's doing, or if you're interested in any of our other events, we can work with you to try to help you, make some changes or bring things up a notch if you're interested. We also work with many different kinds of facilitators who have different styles and approaches. So if you don't enjoy one event, we encourage you to come to another one. We've got a couple different Theravada teachers, one from the Thai forest tradition and one from the, I believe, Upandita Sayadaw tradition coming in the next month. So that'll be super different, very interesting too. So hope you join for those. And we also have now Roshi Mado Moore from Korinji, who's also in the Rinzai school, coming at the end of May. So that'll be a little bit more similar in some ways to this, but hope you can come for that as well. And you can stay tuned for all of our events on our newsletter, social media. Encourage you to share. Most of our most successful promotion is still word of mouth, asking friends, telling people about it. So it's always helpful. And we'll be recording this event. If you would rather not be in the recording, you should just let me know. I'll try to keep it focused on Corey, but during the Q&A session, you might want to DM me a question and I can ask Corey, or just let me know if you'd rather not be on our YouTube channel. And if you have any other feedback about the event, questions about Dharma Gates, things like that, I'll stay on for a little bit after the event, but you can also email team@dharmagates.org and we'd be happy to talk. And I think almost everybody here, a lot of the folks here already work with Corey and know him, but I'll give a little background for the folks that don't. So yeah, we're really excited to have Corey Hess here today. Corey spent much of his 20s training at Sogenji, a somewhat famously vigorous and high quality Rinzai Zen monastery in Japan, and then much of his time since then integrating and exploring deeply a lot of healing and embodiment modalities that I and many people I know have found extremely helpful for bringing this practice into its full embodiment. I don't know how to say it better than that, but maybe you can do that, Corey. Yeah, so Corey focuses on a lot of different practices. He'll talk more about that. And I want to promote the Energy Collective. If you get a lot out of this session, Corey teaches 5 of these classes a week, and so you can join there, and I'll post the link in the chat. You can drop into a class and see what it's like. Yeah, that's all I got. So I'll just give it to you and you can hand it back to me with a few minutes left at the end. And thanks for coming, everybody.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm Corey Ichigen. That's my Dharma name. I think what we'll do is I'll just give a little intro and then we'll do like a basic, simple class of movement. and then we'll do a Q&A kind of at the end. And so I hope that you bring some questions and yeah, bring some good questions if you feel drawn to. And I prefer that to me giving a lecture. So I'd love if you gave me something to work with, to chew on. But I'll kind of treat this as I'm maybe people are going to be watching this who are interested in training and maybe monastic training, and I'll try to give a flavor of the Rinzai style here. Okay. So yeah, I grew up, you know, kind of a sensitive guy, and at a certain point, there was an urgency in me that needed expressing, and I looked at Buddhism, found a lot of Buddhism, and but what there was something about it that felt kind of the middle way. I didn't quite understand that. Didn't quite understand this idea of a middle way because I was such an intense person, and so it was like this power was driving through me that I couldn't really handle. I didn't know how to deal with, and you know, but hadn't really figured out what to do with it. And at a certain point, I decided I wanted to go and explore Zen. I thought I was going to be a kind of farmer poet, and so I wrote Gary Snyder, and Gary, the famous writer and poet, and I said I want to go do training in Japan like you, and I want to come back and, you know, maybe try to do some writing. And he said, well, wait just a second, go to this place on Whidbey Island first. And I was living in Missoula, Montana, and I thought I was like, you know, the next Jack Kerouac. And so, okay, I'll go out there, and I drove out there, and I got there, and it was such a different experience than what I had anticipated. There was this kind of beautiful, charismatic monk there who was sharp and kind of rude and powerful and shocking, and he pushed my buttons, and it was vigorous and Spartan, and not this nice feeling I had about Buddhism, and that really affected me. Pushed my buttons, and I got out of there. I don't want to have anything to do with this, and I went and I traveled. And I was in a place like Cuba. I was traveling around, and I couldn't really be happy. There was this aspect of me that I couldn't be where I was. I wasn't able to touch reality and be with it. And so I realized that the trip, the outer trip didn't matter. The outer trip was didn't help. So if I wasn't going to find that unity within, then it didn't matter. So somehow I ended up back in the States, and I wrote them, and I said, I have fond memories, you know, and so I made it back there. And when I got there, the Roshi was there, and visiting from Japan a couple times a year at that point. And somehow I got into one of these teas. I went to lunch, and he's this little tiny man, but so powerful, and these huge chopsticks, and very weird scene. And so I went into this tea, and there was the Roshi, and he was huge. He was this little tiny man, but he was huge, and he was overpowering, and he was so incredibly physically present. I didn't really know what to make of it. I couldn't, it didn't compute. He was, it was like he was on top of me. He was, his presence was overwhelming me. And so that was very shocking to meet what I would say is like human potential, to meet that. It was like I had been looking for that, and I finally had found that. And so I said, well, you know, I didn't even know really why I was there. It was like almost impossible. Why am I here? And then I said, well, why would someone like me go to Japan? they could kind of tell that I was a possible, training person, kind of wired in a certain way. And he said, well, what do you think? He has this incredibly deep voice. And I said, well, I think it depends on the person. I think everybody's different, and they'll have their reasons. And he said, no, it's to realize why you were born. And I couldn't really, I didn't know what to do with that. I had nowhere to go with that. He had gotten me, and so it was like having Yoda tell you, come along with me and train with me, and so I stayed there for, that was in the middle day of the O session, this week-long retreat. And that was day like 4. And I stayed, and they give me one of these chairs that you sit on with your knees and you sit up on them. And I was in agony, just this pressure cooker of intensity and pain and anxiety, and then at the end of that, I had this big opening, and this real experience of zazen, and touching something that felt very powerful. Time stopped, all of these things that you hear about. And so it was like a carrot that showed me, oh, this training has real depth and possibility. And so that gave me a carrot, and I left. I'm not going to do that. I'm not interested. And then somehow I got invited later that in the summer, that I got invited in the summer to go to Japan. I met Win, and I went to Sogenji, and while I was there, I saw how powerful the training was, and it was very emotional, and it was like getting hit by lightning, the intensity there, and it hit me very profoundly. But I still wasn't really ready, and I'm mentioning all this partly because if you don't know why you want to go train, that's okay. You might not understand why. It might not be clear. Like I'm interested in this, but I don't really understand why. And that's okay. That's very normal. You might just want to be a normal person who's happy, but there may be something driving you to dive into this stuff. And for me, it was like that. It was almost unconscious. Why am I doing this? And at first it can be like that. And then I was back on, I live on an island north of Seattle, and I was here, and I got into this O session, and in September, and day 6 was 9/11. And that day 6, the head monk came in and said that the planes had crashed, and there were a bunch of people from New York were at the O session, and I saw that, I needed to go figure some things out. And so in Halloween, so September was the O session. Halloween, I made it to Sogenji. I actually missed it because you pop over, the date changes as you go. And so I missed Halloween that year. And then I got there, and the training is like a conveyor belt of energy. You go there, and you're in the midst of this oven of movement and power, and you start to cook in this, and you start to transform. Your cells start to change, and it's very intense. It's very strange. Everything is moving fast. You think, I'll go to a monastery and everything will be nice and calm. In fact, it's very intense. It's very powerful, and you see yourself slowly start to change. And where you were at odds with yourself, that at first that stuff really comes up and things really show up, and then you start to slowly be able to bring that into harmony and oneness over time. And so the Rinzai training is very energetic and very much into this bodily practice. It's very intense. It's very sharp. It has a ferocity about it that really hooked me. That flavor of that. The Roshi is this maniac of power. And that was it hooked me in such a way. And I want to just share that. There are different flavors. And they're all beautiful, and you have to find the one that hooks you, the one that interests you. You hear that person talking and your whole body lights up. And I think that's very important. And for me, that was finding the Roshi. Oh, this is a profound training. And so a little bit about Rinzai training. The Tanden, or lower Dantian, is the main focus of the training, at first especially. So 2 or 3 centimeters below the navel, okay, in the middle of the belly, okay? So you have the skin on your belly and the skin on your lower back, okay? A midpoint in between those, thinking about starting to get a sense of that area. That is day one, is the Roshi looking at you and patting his belly and grunting at you and saying, this is it right here, over and over, over and over. And so developing that tanden, we learn this thing called Susocon. Okay, Susocon is when you extend your breath out as far as you can, okay, and then a little bit more. And most of us, when we do this is in zazen, we have to learn Susocon, and this is this exhale completely. And most of us, we do this with force at first, and all of these stuck places start to come up in the body. Okay, all of these intense emotions, all of these rigid places start to show up in a really big way. And so the training then begins to become this internal alchemy of opening up these areas and learning to deal with them, learning to open them, and harmonizing that, unifying that. The training is energetic, bodily. It's about unifying that, okay? When I was there about, I don't know, I can't remember, 6 months, I cornered the Roshi. What do you want from me? You know, and he said, I want you to get into your body right now. And so that was my task. That was the task, to get into the body, and then work with that. Okay, the Roshi has this quote, our bodies already know how to birth true wisdom. And this is what I really found with the training, okay? So a couple of practices I did in my training, which I want to share today, are I learned this practice called Jamjong, okay? This is pole standing, okay? And it's a very beautiful practice I learned from a Danish monk who was there at Sogenji, and I did this every day. And I also learned something called non-directed body movement, and maybe we'll do a little bit at the end of the standing practice today. And that is kind of the opposite of the Jamjong in a certain way. The Jamjong involves holding postures static and not moving, okay? And when I began zazen, at first, most of us have all of this chaos, internal chaos going on. Either the motor is not running and we can't figure out how to get the motor running, or the motor is running, our internal process is happening, and it's butting up against itself, causing pain, causing frustration, okay? Right? And so these practices of Jamjong and then non-directed body movement for me, these allowed me to find the internal language to be able to work with these stuck places, okay? Where there's chaos, you begin to become more sophisticated in your internal experience, and then these stuck places can begin to open, okay? More and more you become sophisticated, more and more. Also, it creates a type of momentum in the system, okay? Many of us, again, where the motor is not really happening, or sometimes it's happening, our internal process, there's a momentum that's happening, and then sometimes there really isn't. And I get lost. What am I doing here? I can't find it. Something was happening the other day and it's not happening now. Well, these practices like Jamjong, they give us more a sense of this internal momentum that's always there to work with. And so that momentum is there, doing the work more and more. creates this power that's always there moving through the system. And so we have something to work with all of the time. It's always there. I say to my the people in my group, this is blue collar work. We're doing it every day. And as we do it every day, these changes happen over time, little by little, little by little, shifts, little breakthroughs, little breakthroughs. It's there all the time. It's more and more real, more and more real. Okay. I'll go into the non-directed a little bit as we do some standing, but enough talking. How about we do a little bit of movement? Any questions right now before I go into the movement? Okay. All right. Well, let's go into a little bit of movement. Let's see here. All right. So I'm going to stand. I think you all can see me pretty well. I would love to be able to see your body if possible. Okay. I would love to be able to see your body, which includes your feet. It isn't necessary if you can't, but I would love to be able to see that. Okay. And let's see, I look pretty good. Let's see. I want to do a little bit of warm-ups, okay? And then we'll go into some of this standing postures, okay? So, let me make a few points here first. Heavy elbow. You want to have a heavy elbow when you're doing this practice, okay? If you have a heavy elbow, then as you reach up, say I'm going to reach up and grab this cup here. Reaching up to grab this cup. If I keep my elbow heavy, then I'm reaching up and my awareness is going down into the ground, okay? If I jack out my elbow here, if my elbow comes out like this, then all the pressure is going to my shoulder, okay? Reaching up, my awareness goes down into the ground, okay? If I bring my elbow out, it all goes to my shoulder and stops, okay? Can you feel that? A little bit, okay? Bubbling well, okay? Somewhere in here, the bubbling well, okay? Slightly forward on the foot, okay? We're not going onto the heels, not quite the middle of the foot, slightly forward, not the toes, okay? I'm gonna talk about the bubbling well over and over, okay? This is like a gateway that we tap into, okay? Lower dantian. Okay, again, 2 or 3 centimeters below the navel, and then that sort of midpoint in the belly, just as a beginning thought, okay, like a little golden egg in there. Thinking about it like that, maybe at first, okay? Middle of the body is more emphasized than the appendages. Middle of the body, we're moving from the middle of the body, okay? The lower body is emphasized here, lower body, and that is rooted, okay? My first Sanzen with the Roshi ever, he said, your lower body is rooted, your upper body is light and floating. This is called Kuden in Japanese. The oral teachings, lower body is rooted, upper body is light and long, okay? Great. So thinking about those as we do all of these movements, all right? I'm going to start by just gently rolling the ankle. I'm going to stand on my left, bubbling well, okay? And I'm going to feel on the top of my head above my ears this Ba Wei point, okay? Straight above my ears, this slight lift of my head here, okay? Lower body is rooted, upper body is light and long. Sinking into this leg. And we want to just make a nice smooth motion with our ankle. We want to open up our feet a little bit here. Okay, great, great, great. And changing direction. Nothing special, just sinking into that. Sometimes you will feel it as a sinking, and sometimes it will feel like the ground is coming up to your foot. Really simple. And then changing, going to the other foot, sinking into that bubbling well. Ba Wei point on the top of the head is expressing. So this upper body is light, lower body is rooted. Changing direction. And you might want to slow down and kind of feel into that joint. And if it's clicking, you might slow down a little bit and feel, oh, I can kind of connect with that, and the clicking goes away. Real simple, the knees, putting your hands on your knees without force. Don't lay on your knees with your hands, little circles. Like it's a cookie, we want the cookie to be nice and round, okay? If there's a bite out of the cookie, we don't want the bite out of the cookie, okay? So a nice smooth motion. Doesn't have to be a huge circle. Changing direction, really simple. And for me, I've got to kind of let go of my lower back a little bit to do this. Oh, there, my lower back is a little bit sticky. We just finished our April intensive and we did these 108 bows, and I'm kind of tired. My lower back's a little bit tight from that. Okay. And big circles with the hips. Doesn't have to be a huge circle, can be kind of the right size for you, but we want a nice round circle, feeling into that bubbling well, okay? Feeling that Ba Wei point on the top of the head, like they're opposing, okay? There's a midline of the body, this plumb line of the body, and we're trying to let this plumb line through the body. Lower body is rooted, upper body is light and long. Changing direction. Real simple, just getting the kind of oiling up the joints a little bit. Okay. I like to do this little motion now, just gently rocking the hips forward and back in a nice circle. Real simple. Isolating the movement of the pelvis in nice circles. Changing direction. And if it's a little bit kind of, oh, that part's a little weird, that's okay. Just exploring that. Maybe there's a little bit of a, even a little bit of a scary place. Just exploring how to soften that. Just moving, exploring these hidden places that don't move very well. Good. Good. Thinking about the body as a stack of books, okay? From the ground, as if we're standing on the ground, stacking books up from the ground, rolling the shoulders forward. You can imagine that the ground is a wall that we're pressing off of. So we're using the ground as a wall that we're pressing off of. Spinal waves here, standing on the ground, stacking up the books on this plumb line, rolling the shoulders forward, giving ourselves to gravity, standing on the ground. What a concept. And then rolling the shoulders back from the ground, standing on the ground, from the ground like a wall, pressing the shoulders back. Like the ground is a wall that we're pressing off of. We can use that wall all the time. Standing, sinking into one leg. There's this concept of the claw here, sort of like the groin, kind of sinking down through that, down into the bubbling well, sinking and then rolling the opposite shoulder up and forward, sinking and rolling the opposite shoulder up and forward, sinking and rising, sinking and rising. Great. And sinking and rolling the opposite shoulder back, sinking and rolling the opposite shoulder back, sinking into the bubbling well, rolling the opposite shoulder back. Head stays vertical, keeping this ba wei point alive. Lower body is rooted, upper body is light and long, moving from the middle of the body. Great. Great. I want to keep it pretty simple today. Let's gently do this one. We're going to leave our feet pretty planted, nice and good base, maybe about shoulder width. And I'm just going to start to shift my weight from one foot to the other, driving through this claw down into the bubbling well. I'm shifting my weight to one leg to the other. Shifting. My spine starts to twist a little bit, driving through the ground. And I'm just going to start to let my arms swing a little bit, driving through this claw down into the bubbling well. Ba wei point stays alive. Lower body rooted. And don't swing your arms. It's not about swinging your arms. Let them just go. Feel the spine wherever it's rigid, letting that go. This is all just kind of warm-up stuff. Finding this midline, this plumb line. Anywhere I'm rigid, trying to soften. Okay. Great. Really simple. Coming back, I would like to do a shortened version of the Eightfold Brocade. Okay. So this is something to do every day, if possible. I don't always do it right before the Jamjong. I often will break it up and I'll do the Eightfold Brocade at some point during the day and then some Jamjong later, which we'll do. I want to just do this Eightfold Brocade, maybe a shortened version. Feet are about maybe in between hip and shoulder with feeling this bubbling well. Let's go into, this is called Wuji and translates, I think, as really no limits, which is really beautiful. This is often the bookend of the postures, the first posture and the last posture, and I think the most profound posture of the standing meditation. We often will think the harder postures are more important, but I think this one is the most important. So that bubbling well, okay? Like a gateway that we start to feel into. Soft ankles, give your ankles to gravity. Give your upper body into the ground. Let your ankles go a little bit. All that constant gripping, soften there. Our bodies are like kinked hoses. How do we unkink the hose? Soft knees. Don't lock your knees. The perineum, in between the genitals and the anus, a slight engagement there, a little lift, a little sense of awareness there. Don't do it too hard. Doing it too hard is not good. So just a little engagement there. A lot of us Zen folks kind of walk around with these tight assholes for years. So don't do it too tight. More is not more there. Lower dantian, just a possibility, planting a seed about that lower dantian. The chest and mid-back, okay? Most of us feel like, well, I'm pretty open in my chest. I'm pretty open-hearted. And yet maybe the mid-back is the occult place that is not open at all. So front door, back door, how do we soften? How do we soften there? Okay. Let the base of the skull go. Soften there. Let go of those hard wires anchoring the back of the head back down into the body. Soften there. Tongue is on the roof of the mouth like you were going to say love, okay? Without force. Don't tighten up your face to do that. Soft. If you tighten up your face, if you use force here, you'll start to tighten up your chest and mid-back. Soft gaze on the horizon. The best place to do this practice is out, like either by a tree or more ideally in front of a body of water. Find a spot on the horizon and stare at that spot with a nice wide open gaze, okay? This ba wei points straight above the ears, a gentle lift there, like a little hook is gently pulling the top of the head up. Gently pulling the top of the head up. Or that this midline, this plumb line is just gently pressing through the ceiling there, pressing through to heaven. Okay, that midline is doing the work. We're trying to find an invisible plumb line of energy and soften around that, soften into that. Okay, if we do this with force, if we lift our head with force, we'll tighten up our chest and mid-back. And if we're doing it without force, the chin will naturally tuck. Little space underneath the armpits, like there's a racquetball underneath the armpits, okay? We don't want to collapse shoulders right now, okay? We want a little buoyancy there, a little buoyancy, okay? Hands are by the side, okay? Like your middle finger would be around your IT band, something like that, okay? So the hands are not out front here right now, more to the side. And the hands are like there's cotton balls in between the fingers, buoyancy, aliveness through the hands. We don't want the dead fish hands, okay? Let's do a abbreviated version of the Eightfold Brocade. So from here, I'm feeling this bubbling well. I feel a sense of buoyancy starting through my system. The ba wei point starts to lift. My body starts to fill up, and I'm going to bring my hands out to holding a ball out here. Okay. And as I do that, I sink in a different way down into that bubbling well. It's okay if you don't quite feel that yet. It's like our lower body is being pulled down into that bubbling well. We have to change our pelvis slightly as we bring our hands out. Okay. Little by little. I'm going to bring my hands up very gently, and I'm going to press through the heavens, lengthening my lower back. Hands are going straight up, okay? Lengthening the lower back, exhaling, and then inhaling. I'm going to soften my knees, sink down a little bit. Exhaling, lengthening through the lower back, through the chest, mid-back. Massaging the organs with these movements. Inhaling as you soften, bend the knees a little. Exhaling. Heavy elbows, feeling that bubbling well. Great. Simple, simple. Coming back down, holding the ball. Already a sense of buoyancy through the system, like the body starting to fill up, feel more spacious, feeling that bubbling well, feeling the bow weight point on the top of the head. The hands start to feel more buoyant. I'm going to sink down, spreading my feet to about shoulder width, sinking down, like I'm sitting back on a big yoga ball, sitting straight down. And I'm going to draw a bow, pulling with my right, extending out with my left, looking out at that arrow. And then inhaling, crossing the arms, and the other way, sinking down into the lower body. I'm sinking into my left leg as I draw the bow to the right. Find your own pace with this. Don't go too fast and don't go too slow. Sinking into the lower body, feeling how maybe this lower dantian is involved, this tanden, 2 or 3 centimeters below the navel, in the middle of the belly. Lower body is rooted, interacting with this field, starting to feel this sense of a field of energy around the body. How can we begin to get a sense of that, negotiate it, explore it? Great, I want to keep moving, coming back, holding the ball. Body starts to fill up in a different way. I'm going to sink down onto my left leg, and like this ball is a ball of taffy, I'm going to pull it apart as my left hand follows down into my left leg, and my right hand goes up, separating heaven and earth. How is the tanden involved here? Sense of aliveness in the lower back too. Coming back together, pushing that ball together and separating, going the other way, sinking onto the right leg as the left arm goes up. Don't obsess over my words as we do these practices. Just let it kind of come in. Take it in and feel it in your body. Just let it happen. It's not about obsessing over the details right now. Wherever we're rigid, using these movements to begin to feel into those places and feather them out, soften them, activate this field of energy. Upper body is light. Lower body is rooted. Find your own pace. Good. 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 I'm going to slowly come back, holding that ball, sinking into that bubbling well, sitting down on that big yoga ball or that balloon. Bow point is alive, active. This plumb line through the body. Soft gaze. And I'm going to come up. My hands are going to come up. This is actually the second pose of Jamjong. And from here, I'm going to turn my hands out and cow gazes at the moon. I'm actually driving through my left leg as I turn to the right. Inhaling as you come back and exhaling to the other way. Starting to feel this field, like we're living in this sea of chi, not some idea, experiencing it. Little by little, this practice and Buddhism, the Dharma, it all becomes something to experience, feel. Great, something like that. Really simple. I'm gonna plant my feet. Leave the feet planted here if you can. And if any of these postures are too much for you, it's okay. Don't do them. We never want to push these postures into a dangerous place. So being very gentle, these practices we should be able to do for our whole lives. And so not forcing the joints ever. Very gentle. I'm going to reach over. Reaching over, really simple. You don't have to be a hero here, just reaching over. By the way, don't grab your leg with this arm that's down here. I like to do that. Don't do that. And standing through the bubbling well and the other way. Feeling the ground is a wall, letting go of tension. How can the lower dantian be involved here? How can this tanden be involved? How is it always involved? Great. Really simple. I want to keep moving. Holding the ball. Like we're standing in a lake up to our waist, okay? I'm going to sink down onto that big yoga ball and I'm going to gather this lake water forward, gathering that forward, finding that bubbling well. And I'm going to turn my hands over and come down and brush the ankles. Go as far as you can, as far as feels right, brushing the ankle. The head stays pretty vertical. Hands come back, gathering that water forward. gathering it forward, rushing the ankles. Through these practices, unifying the energy, bringing it into oneness. Gathering the water forward, rushing the ankles. If you're pregnant, don't do this move. This one's not good if you're pregnant. Little by little, we're interacting with this field. It's not an idea. Coming back, holding the ball, sinking down onto that yoga ball, putting the thumbs inside of the hands, elbows come close to the body, okay? I'm gonna actually drive down through my right leg. My right elbow is gonna come back and I'm gonna punch with my left. Totally relaxing, softening. Driving to the opposite leg, punching. Don't dive out. Stay rooted. Keep that lower back alive. Keep the tendon alive. Don't dive out. Great. A little abbreviated. Usually you do 8 sets of each move, okay? Putting the heels of the wrist on the lower back, maybe around the kidneys, something like that. And then we're gonna do some jostling, okay? So here we're looking for anywhere in my body that I'm rigid and just using this movement to sort of GPS into those tight places. Oh, I'm rigid there. How can I use this movement to gently tease that open? Tongue is on the roof of the mouth, slightly engaging the perineum. Some people like to go out under their toes, like to jump a little bit. I like to do that. Come on under the toes and jumping a little bit. Creatively exploring how can I soften where I'm rigid. And then going over onto one leg. I like to sink onto one leg, letting my arms go. And then from that right bubbling well, how can I find this line of clarity up to the top of the head? Where am I rigid in there? Trying to get the arm to let go as I do this. Good. Good. And changing sides. A little different world over here. Where am I rigid there? Using the movement creatively. Teasing apart these areas that are a little bit rigid. Great, great, great. I'm going to shake out my hands just a little bit here. Okay, great. That's a simple version of the Eightfold Brocade. Okay, I'm going to come back to Wuji. Feet are about in between hip and shoulder width, remembering our points. Thank you all who are here who've been through all this. Thank you for your patience. I want to kind of review this for the new people. Remembering this plumb line. Maybe your spine feels longer, like there's space in between the vertebra. That top of the head just wants to start to shoot up. The chin naturally tucks. Feeling that bubbling well. Being curious about that. The lower dantian or tanden. Sometimes you feel that in the lower back at first. Being open to experiencing something new in the lower back. Also feeling the back. Most of us just feel the front of our bodies. Okay. So I want to go into about, I'm going to do 5 minutes and then extend it. For those who've been doing this a while, we're going to go to 10, but the new people, just 5 minutes. Okay. So I'm going to take my feet out to about shoulder width. Okay. I'm going to sink straight down. This is really hard, sinking straight down. It's like we're sitting down on a yoga ball or a big beach ball. Okay. And as I do that, gently my hands come up to about the height of the heart. Okay. Try to use the least amount of force to do that. Looking down, can I see my toes? If I can't see my toes, it means I've got to fold through what's called the quad here, and often the lower back, maybe the sacroiliac joint, letting go there, sinking down. Many of us have to go onto our toes a little bit to sink down and find that bubbling well. Okay. Like we're gently hugging a balloon between our knees. Don't squeeze that balloon, gently hugging that balloon. Make sure your whole foot's on the ground. Elbows are supported from below like balloons are underneath the elbows. Softening the pelvis like the pelvis is fluid, liquid. And this is it. This is the first part of Jamjong. This is it. Standing here, relaxing, softening. Wherever I'm rigid, wherever I'm holding, using this posture to become conscious and to soften those areas. Putting the awareness back into the tanden. Not denying all these places that start to show up. Wherever we're rigid, don't brace there. Try to soften. Try to take a chance. Our bodies are like kinked hoses. Elbows, they're not completely dropped, a little bit up. Okay, hands are alive, like you're holding an expansive ball. Let that expansiveness come through your body. Holding that ball, space in between the fingers. Yep, a little better, yep. And a sense that as I sink down into that bubbling well, somehow that connection with the ground lifts my hands. Creatively exploring that. And like I was saying in the beginning, a type of internal momentum starts to happen. These rigid places that once felt so out of reach. In our zazen, maybe we're sitting there and we just feel kind of stuck or like a pressure cooker. Can't go left, can't go right. In this practice, those areas, we start to be able to engage. They start to move like some eddy in a river that's been blocked. Oh, it starts to move. Creatively letting go. Often it's like we think there's a door, we've got to push it open, and instead it's a pull open door, or it's a sliding door. We've been pushing for 20 years. Softening. And then you'll have just little breakthroughs will start to happen. Oh, there's a little more freedom there. A little light cracked through. Eyes are ideally open. Find that spot on the horizon. Sinking down. If you kind of don't know what's going on here, what's all the fuss about? Sink down a little bit. Turn up the heat. Sit down on that yoga ball. If you're kind of like, I don't get it. What's going on? Sink down. Look down. Can I see my toes? If you can't, soften the pelvis. Maybe pull your lower back backwards a little bit. Softening. Anywhere we're rigid, instead softening. Don't control your breathing during the Jamjong. Just let the breath take over. Like a pressure cooker, don't create more tension upon the tension. That's been about 5 minutes. Those who are beginners, go back down to Wuji if you want. Hang out there, that's fantastic. Wuji's the best. A couple of us are gonna hang out a little bit longer. Ideally, we're able to do this. Okay, ideally, every day we do this 5 minutes. Every day, 5 minutes. And then when 5 minutes is pretty doable, go to 6 or 5.5. Up until I can do this for 20 minutes. Really hard at first, but don't be a hero. Just do 5 minutes every day. And real changes will start to happen. Real shifts. Honestly feeling what's happening. You know, it's not about standing here and thinking about the grocery store later. What's happening? How can I become what's happening? Don't dive over that ball. Don't chase that ball away. Let it come to you. Let it fill you up like a hose which is kinked. We're letting the system open up. Give your whole foot to the ground. You know, if your foot is maybe you kind of shifted over and just one edge of your foot is really touching, try to give your whole foot to the ground. Not easy. Softening. Maybe some kind of movements happening from the inside out rather than us with our great ideas. The body starts to change a little bit. Some little freedom happened there. The body starts to align, giving ourselves to this posture, taking a chance and softening instead of, you know, it's hard maybe. Don't just brace, soften. Give it a chance. 2 more minutes. And if something starts to open, it's okay if your posture slightly changes. We're not robots. It's about feeling what's happening, letting the posture guide us to open. It's about a green light, not a red light. Letting this light through the body. Great. Okay, I think that's good for now. Coming back down into Wuji. Okay, simple, simple. Maybe the spine is a little bit longer. Maybe your head doesn't fit in the screen. I got taller. Top of the head is a little bit more buoyant. Top of the head shoots up. Chin naturally tucks. Chest is more soft, more open. Mid-back, the occult mid-back has started to open. There's a possibility there. Let's take 3 big movements here. I'm going to gather the energy around us, gathering it down into the lower dantian or tanden, gathering it. Heavy elbows, of course, trying to use the least amount of force possible. For those who've been doing this a while, using the bubbling well, sinking into the bubbling well. And it's like the hands rise up from the bubbling well, giving ourselves to gravity, giving ourselves to the ground, sinking, soft, more and more relaxed. Anywhere we're rigid there, like maybe our chest and mid-back, using the movement to negotiate, feathering out that tension. Maybe you didn't even know you had that tension. Oh, this field, I'm feeling this area. This practice turned the heat up, and there it showed up. Putting the right hand over the lower dantian and the left hand over that, just kind of sealing that. I would love to do 5 minutes of something else here real quick. Okay, 5 minutes. My feet are about, I don't know, in between hip and shoulder width, letting the arms go. Okay, this is the non-directed. And I learned this when I was in college. And I did it every day in my training at Sogenji when I had, an hour in between lunch. The idea here is I recommend closing the eyes at first. And if your body starts to move a little bit, if it starts to process something that's, in the system, just giving it a chance to sort that out. We've got 5 minutes, something like that. Don't let the editor come in and create a perfect posture. And don't create anything. If you start to move and then you kind of go, well, am I doing kind of a creative movement? Just stop. Stop and wait. Like a blank canvas. What's actually trying to happen? How can we get into our bodies? Melt into the room. Catch hold of this great life energy. It's okay if nothing happens. Instead of diving out with your awareness, trying to make something happen, trying to fix something, trying to create something, what's coming? How can we receive what's trying to happen? Just letting go of control for another minute. What's actually trying to happen? Great. Really simple, really simple. Slowly coming back, you may feel that your feet have touched the ground in a slightly different way. They've met the ground, and the hands maybe are a little bit blotchy, red, blotchy. This spot here is similar to the bubbling well, opens up, full of energy. 3 more of these big movements gathering, feeling that bubbling well, gathering the energy around us. Maybe that field feels more real. Oh, I'm living in this sea of chi. I can feel that a little bit more. It's more real. It's not some idea I read about. I'm engaging with it. I'm feeling into what's happening. 3 of those at your own pace. Great. I'm going to take and I'm going to rub my hands together. Don't rush, Hashim. And rubbing my hand, no need to rush. And I'm going to rub down my body, rubbing my body down. Anywhere I'm sticky, rubbing down the body. Anywhere there's a little rustiness, a little tense area. And then traditionally outside, down the outside of the arms, up the inside, down the outside, up the inside, down the outside, up the inside. Getting my whole chest and belly, especially the kidneys. Make sure to get the kidneys. And then down the outside of the legs, up the inside, down the outside, up the inside, down the back of the legs, up the front, down the back of the legs, up the front. Shaking out any tension. I'm going to give a little bow. And I say we take a 2-minute bathroom break and we'll be right back. Okay? We'll be back in 2 minutes. We'll see who comes back. Take off. Okay. Oh, Hashim's still coming. Thanks for those notes, Aaron. Okay, why don't we open it up to any questions, comments about some of that standing work, anything from today, what I've talked about. I'd love to get good questions. I'm a little better at that, I think, than lecturing. So love a little dialogue.
I have a little bit of a question. I'm kind of just coming in, but it took me a while to get in. It's kind of like I'm new to the whole Buddhism thing. I'm very new to it. And like, I'm just kind of curious about what kinds of daily things, help, because I kind of started learning about it because of my anxiety and depression and everything. So I'm just curious what kinds of practices, help enforce and kind of center the practice of Buddhism, I guess. It's hard to word that question, but
Yeah, sure, sure. Well, yeah, thanks for your question. In many ways, the Rinzai style is to begin to get in touch with this tanden, okay, and that's partly it's a yogic transformation process where we begin to settle in the belly. Some of our emotional stuff will start to even out as we daily do these practices, like maybe what I just was showing, and zazen as a way to start to interact with the places in our body which are sticky. And often what will happen with anxiety is that there's a sense of internal conflict, physical internal conflict that's happening. And if we can begin to even out our system, even out our body, our entire being, and unify that more, then some of these things, they start to settle a little bit. This is part of the Rinzai style, is to root ourselves in our body and start to unify that. And then some of these things, they start to work themselves out. So instead of thinking our way through these issues, which often can be pretty difficult, to start to feel these places, these maybe stuck places that light up in anxiety, and begin to engage in dialogue and harmonize there. So this is a physical practice to begin to work with that stuff.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think, and the thing about these things is that they're real kind of blue collar. I love to say that in all my classes. This is blue collar work. So we do it every day, and changes happen over time. Many people have certain pyrotechnics that happen, big experiences, and I'm all for that. That's very important. But also the daily working to just gently work on these things, and a process will unfold over time. We may not even notice, oh, we've come through something, and we're more harmonious in our whole being. And it's not just a mental thing, but my whole being is adaptable and soft and harmonious in situations, rather than I'm moved around by this or that. More our whole body can meet things, and we're not so volatile. But of course, I would recommend seeing some kind of professional if there are real issues. I think it's really important to be smart and all that. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. You came in a little late. You didn't get to do some of the practices, I think. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. Like there's a lot going on, and I just saw the the post on Facebook, and I was like, I might want to try that. But then some stuff came up during the time, so I wasn't able to join till recently, because we're moving, so we have a lot of stuff we have to do in preparation for that. So
I hear you. Okay. Okay. Well, good to see you. Thank you. Anyone else? Don't be shy. We have kind of a small group, but some of you I know. But yeah, please.
I'm
Kendall.
wondering, so I work probably like many people, like a computer job. So I spend all the day like typing away on my keyboard. Um, and I have like a nice adjustable standing desk. Was hoping that would help me feel like more aware of my body throughout the day. But I definitely like struggle with that a lot. I find like just periods of time will pass, and like I don't know, I feel like my posture, like I don't know where it's at and stuff like that. And like how do you approach this kind of thing when you're like having to think so hard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you do can you do 5-minute Jamjong? That's a lot of people do. 5 minutes. You take your 5 minutes every whatever interval you can, and you can do 5 minutes of the second posture, something like that. I recommend this book if you want to get it. This guy's teacher, this is Lam Kam Chuan, and his teacher was a dentist, and he would stand up and do the Jamjong in between, and he would work on like this incredible amount of people. So as a dentist, pretty hard, in China, and working all day long, really long hours. And Lam Kam Chuan said that he was like unstoppable, and he would do these 5 minutes in between people. He'd do 5 minutes, and can be really simple. Doesn't have to be an epic, epic stand, but letting that this buoyancy starts to happen through the system. More and more, there's this type of momentum or buoyancy, and that starts to do the work. We become more and more familiar with that, and then we're giving ourselves to that. Then our posture blossoms up. It's not about making that posture happen. We give ourselves to that life energy. I start to lift up. So little by little, it becomes, it's always trying to happen. And the thing about these practices is doing them every day is that it's just closer. It's just right there. If you do it once in a while, you can get this all kind of moving, but it's not the same as if you do it every day. You stand there and then you start, it's happening. It's moving through me, and my posture opens, my whole body starts to open. So that daily aspect is what makes this buoyancy, this postural changes happen. Just to say, like in the monastery though, you see people who come and they, I've told people this, but they look really good at first, the first month, everyone looks so good, they look so beautiful, like light bulbs. And then you see them after a month, start to fade, and all that like good idea posture, good idea, kind of, and also you're exhausted, right? You're exhausted in the monastery. You're just get zero sleep, 4 hours of sleep or something. And and then what happens is after a couple months, few months, 6 months, a year, something starts to happen. It's like they can start to keep up something. There's a buoyancy that starts to happen through the system, through this lower dantian, through the body starts to open in this kind of organic way. And it's like we're catching that through these practices. We're catching hold of that buoyancy. And then that's doing the work. It's not about Corey and his perfect posture. It's that, this buoyancy starts to, it's forming my body. It's lifting me up all the time. And so throughout the day, we can do that. We can check in. Where is it? I can find it, and it lifts me up little by little. That can be a real transformational process. That's what I would really recommend, is doing this practice or similar practices, whatever work for you, where you can get a hold of that buoyancy, and then that will be doing the postural work rather than coming at it. Most of us kind of from an idea place, Does it make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Of course. I love these because they work, there's so many things that, you do them and you kind of go, well, okay, that was interesting, but it didn't, I don't really feel like it actually helped me. Or some genius did that and they got something out of it, but I'm just like a normal person or whatever. These that you really do, they really quickly, they pack a punch also. So you can do this for, I recommend like 40 minutes a day if possible, but even 20 minutes. 20 minutes of this, you're lit up. And that's efficient, So that's my recommendation. Also, people who have done training or done some kind of deep practice, and then they kind of took a break, or they kind of, it faded. that energy that they once knew, that practice, that essence, we say ki, or this ba, this field of energy that once was there, we kind of, I kind of lost it a little bit. These practices are a really good way to get back in touch with that. And then I'll hear this quite often from longtime practitioners. The energy that I thought I had, just had at one point and lost, I got it back. It's there. I can still work with it now. 10, 15 years after the monastery, I can catch it again and work with it. So these practices, they're really effective in that way, from my understanding. Anyone else, please?
I have a question that's been simmering with me is I don't know, I heard somewhere that one of the base practices for, like, if you're learning martial arts in a sort of old school way, they would just have you stand there for an hour, just before, for a long time, you're just doing standing before you do anything else. And it's made me interested in, like, standing as a form of exercise, like just kind of really using it as a kind of it's sort of a kind of physical conditioning that that's very strange and just outside of the Western notions of what physicality is all about. And I don't know if you have any, like, thoughts on that, or like what is it doing to the nervous system that's like,
yeah,
I get shaky and my heart goes up and I'm like, it's like physically very challenging, even if I'm just in Wuji, like not really doing that much. And I'm like, clearly something's happening here that,
yes,
I'm not like going hard on the gym.
yes, yes. I completely understand, and I agree. I think the one thing that's so wonderful about these practices is that they condition you, and they strengthen your heart, and they strengthen your body, and they don't ruin your joints, or they don't stress the joints too much. If we're doing them well, they're not actually compromising the joints, which many practices, you got to be careful running, you can get a good workout running in a short amount of time, but if I'm not quite the right body type, I can hurt my knees pretty easy, So, and I think that, softening the body, releasing tension is such an efficient way to exercise, letting the system kind of harmonize as a unit, letting these areas open up. It's a huge workout. It's a huge workout, and sinking down. If we want to ever, as I always say, ever want to turn the volume up, just sink down a little bit, and then you got a serious workout happening. And if we're doing it well, it doesn't damage the body. There are trade-offs, I think, for a lot of exercise. I would say that I like dynamic movement also. I think that dynamic movement is healthy and good, and I think there's some kind of kinesthetic lighting up that happens when you run, and when you wrestle, and when you know what I mean, and when you do dynamic movements. I think that's good for our brain too, in a certain way, in our body. So I think being physical is really good, and then maybe repair your body in the Jamjong. So I think both are good. And I once thought that all I was going to do was just do like Jamjong and zazen, and that by totally letting go of any tension, that's it. But I have since found over the years, I'm a little bit older now, that got to get moving too. Gotta I like my push-ups. I like my pull-ups. They help my shoulders. We're working, a lot of us work in flexion. It's good to use our shoulders in other ways. I find it to be helpful. So helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in this it's actually funny because I've had this knee injury for a little bit, so I've had to kind of chill out on my yoga practice, which has been one of my main forms of exercise for a while. And I'm like trying to figure out what, you know, I want to be doing a bunch of practice, but my body also hates it when I stop exercising. So like, how do I balance what form of exercise is really conducive to practice? And I don't want
I think also the thing that's interesting is that as we get more and more into our body through like these practices, it's like our body isn't that thing. You know, you're a yoga person, so it's another wonderful venue for this. But like with this, your body is not this thing over there that you're using and maybe misusing. How many of us exercise or have exercised. I'll just kind of throw my body around that thing that bothers me most of the time. If we get into our body, like with these practices, you know, you lift your arm and your whole body is working as a unit to lift the arm. That's just so much more efficient. And so all of our normal exercise will just be much more harmonious and unified with that if we get into our body. And there's lots of, you know, stuff about this with real relaxation changes the way that the energy works in the body, and that creates a different type of oneness, which is the real point of this, is that this deeper level of integration starts to happen. But I think along the way, it really helps us with all of our physical stuff. Someone made a chat there. Let's see. Try water aerobics. Sounds good. Anybody else?
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
So this is kind of, I have to kind of preface this. I'm studying psychology and counseling. So I like to look at, you know, I like to do like meditation and learn about different things. And I'm like, with, you know, being kind of having your body and mind, you know, kind of in sync with that. I'm just curious. So like a little bit more preface. I don't view Buddhism as a religious belief. You know, because it's, to me, it's a practice and everything. So I'm just curious how I have family who does have strong religious beliefs, and I'm curious how to explain what Buddhism is to them, because they think it's religious when to me it's not centered in religion. Because it helps me, and I'm wondering also, taking off of that, how to explain it to people maybe who want to learn about it, especially with me going into like therapy for kids and helping people kind of find that peace within themselves, because I'm taking my bachelor's in it right now. So I'm just curious how to explain that.
Yeah, well, I mean, in some ways, you know, we can't convince anyone of this or that. And Chris Johnson, do you want to take a stab at that? No. Yeah, I mean, you know, I think working on ourselves, getting ourselves opened up, getting ourselves clear, getting ourselves quiet and more unified. That's going to be the great communicator of this stuff. You know, that's going to be the way we share it. You know, I don't think it's probably the best idea to talk about Buddhism too much personally. I think trying to explain Buddhism is usually what takes up most of YouTube in not the best way. You know what I mean? So maybe not talking about it too much, but just doing the practice, and slowly someone will say, "Oh, something's different about you. Something's changing, and I feel a little better around you." And that's, you know, most of my work, to be honest, is covert. You know, I'm not here talking about you know, Buddhism in Japan and my my practice in Japan to most people. I think it's better to let them meet them and see what is helpful for them in with my whole being, and that's how I communicate. That's how I work with it. And the practice gives you that. It gives you this ability to bring your whole self to people and to meet them, and that's a powerful communication.
Right. I just know it's helped me. So like when I was explaining it, my in-laws, they're very, very Catholic. And which is funny because my fiance is Norse. So it's kind of a whole different batch of beliefs there. So it's like I was, comfortable because I used to be a Christian and I was very not comfortable with pushing myself towards those beliefs as much as I knew I needed to work on myself. And doing a research and everything, I found that from my understanding, one of the big central things about practicing is, being with yourself, finding, help within yourself and everything. That's from what I've learned. So like, I was comfortable. I didn't bring up the topic to them, but, I went on my Facebook because a lot of people thought that I was Christian. I was like, I don't feel comfortable about talking about religion. I just want everybody to know that that's not my beliefs anymore. So please don't bug me about it, kind of thing. And just kind of asking for respect. And my in-laws saw that. Bless them, they're amazing. But I understand their views. They have different views on it than I do. And my whole thing is, I don't want to convince them. I want them to understand at least that it's not, to me, it's not religious. It's kind of more personal. And I'm working on my personal relationship with myself and I'm comfortable. So like I'm trying to think about, how would I do that? I mean, yeah, showing it is a big thing too. And I'm working on that too. I've already seen a lot of benefits from it for my own personal health and kind of letting things happen as things go. So I'm just more of, my whole thing is I'm wondering how to express that if it comes up in conversation. You know what I mean?
Yep. Sounds good. Sounds good. I'd keep working on it. Anybody else have a question? Hashim?
No, let me tell something about that subject. First, I want to say something. Duygu Hanım, duyuyor musunuz beni?
Evet, duyuyorum.
Ha, tamam. Adınızı gördüm de onun için söylüyorum. Merhabalar, iyi akşamlar. No, I understood she was Turkish. That's why I spoke Turkish. To the lady who was talking about how shall she explain about Buddhism, blah blah. It's first time when I started to meditate, my mom thought that I was getting crazy. He said, "What are you doing? What are you a Buddhist? Are you an atheist? Are you what happened to you? Are you into a sect? Are you going after some?" I said, "No, Mom, this is Buddhism." My mom said, "This is bullshit. What would you, are you looking for a religion? Blah, blah, blah." I think since my family is not conservative, but even they don't understand. Maybe not in the States, but in other countries, it's difficult for people to understand that Buddhism is not a religion. And if they're conservative Catholics, I know from my surroundings, they don't understand. So the best way is not to speak about Buddhism, is just show with your gestures, with your life, with your behaviors, what Buddhism changed in you. Because with conservative people, you get into blah, 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 you get into demagogy. So I think it's better not to speak with them, especially if they're conservative Catholics or whichever religion.
Thank you for that. That does make sense. I appreciate you saying that. They're super sweet. They really are sweet people, but it's like, yeah.
It's not about you, it's about them, because, sorry, I don't know your in-laws, but I just want to say, They say we believe in religion, but it's all dogmatic. It's nothing to do with the self. If Buddhism is a religion, it's your own religion. It's about you. But to tell these to people, they should be open. Otherwise, they have one God, old man in the, upstairs in the sky, blah, blah.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any other questions? Love it. Any other questions? Hi, yeah, please.
One general question about if you would recommend any specific time of day for this practice, because I did have another, for example, yogic practice that I'm doing, and there's like, they specifically told me 3 specific times I need to be certain amount of hours hungry. If it's possible, that's the ideal way. So that's my one question. And I do have a second question that unfortunately may not be relevant to many people, but I want to ask anyways, in case maybe you had to deal with it. I do have a leg length discrepancy, and I've been a dancer for over 30 years. So lots of injuries as a result of that. But this practice, we're quite stable. My foot is not moving as much, or I'm not jumping and putting a lot of pressure on my joints. So I don't know if, and I definitely feel now at this age more than ever because of the leg length, how all the injuries are activated if I'm standing for too long. Moving is easier for me. So would you recommend to lift one foot up maybe, like, or like come to that level on my hips? Do you think that will affect the practice? Or if I'm just continuing with as I have danced without any equalization anyways all my life, I just wouldn't want to take away the effectiveness.
Yes, yes. No, interesting question. Thank you. First thing about the time, I think in some ways we all have a better time for doing these things. Like say in the monastery, if we sat at 9 a.m., sometimes there would be a rainy day and we would not be able to work and we'd have to go sit inside at 9 a.m. I would just be gone, asleep, and there are certain times it's better for us, and I don't think there's a specific time. I do think that morning is really nice. Because we kind of come in fresh and that kind of morning light is powerful. Often you don't have some of that baggage from the day. I think it can be great to do it before bed. The one thing that you hear from most people is I sleep better from doing this. So people can do it, often before bed. It can be really helpful. But I would also just encourage finding the time that where your body sort of lights up. That'd be a good time to explore it, I think. At least at first, my body is really ready for that right now. It feels like I can lock into something and it's powerful, rather than I'm fighting it. Every time I do it this time, I'm fighting it. Maybe not the best time to do it at first. The leg length thing, I would be curious if that's a true leg length issue or if your pelvis is slightly out of balance. So I'd be curious about that for one thing.
It is, because it has been measured. I got x-rays and MRIs, yeah. So it's definitely an issue.
Yeah.
It most speaks up when there is a stable practice of this sort. If I'm in continuous movement, I'm used to it already, but.
Yeah. I would experiment if I were you. I would experiment. And I think that I have found some pretty miraculous things happen with this. So, as we give ourselves more to this energetic stuff, weird things happen, and could be that your legs do weird things. Could be that your leg has contracted in some ways, and it might actually lengthen a little bit through this. Might not be a miracle, but I've seen that. People's legs have been tied up in a certain way from whatever trauma we have, and they actually start to shift. And maybe not, but I would explore it. I would try both, and I would see. I'm not usually a big fan of like lifts in general. I think that's a little bit, but if it's a true leg length and it's if it's going to stop you from doing it, I think I would explore. I would explore. Have a little bit there, and ideally it'd be nice not to have to have it be even ground and explore what starts to happen. I'd be curious about that. Keep us posted.
Thank you.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
only creative thing I could think of was like maybe to be on a bit of a soft ground so that let my body do its thing with weight so
Right.
that it naturally takes shape as opposed to me forcing it. That was the only thing I could think
That'd
of. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. That'd be interesting. Yeah,
Yeah, thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay,
Oh,
well,
Chris has his hand up.
who has his hand up?
Chris.
Chris.
It's funny. I didn't want to weigh in on the last question, and I'm going to weigh in on this leg discrepancy question. But I just wanted to do a goop that
I have a difficulty hearing you.
in some ways, can you hear? Oh no, oh no. I had the solution to your problem, but
You could chat it.
I'll try.
Thank
I'm
you.
so sorry.
Thank you.
Well, what a sweet little group. Anybody else have a comment, question? How about, do we have time, Aaron?
Yeah, we could do one more.
One more. Okay, please.
Sweet. Just one more question. So earlier today, I was like vacuuming, and I felt like I was just getting very tired
Yeah.
while I was vacuuming, even though it wasn't very physically exerting. I just felt very tired. I could feel it coming on, and like I was wondering if that rings a bell in any way, or like what to do in that situation where I don't know, I'm just like not feeling it, but just doing a task. Like,
Okay. Yeah, I think, so say the Rinzai monastery, okay. Everything you do is pretty fast in the monastery. And a lot of us come in and maybe not as much, we could use a little more key flow, okay? And I think part of us get a little tired when we're not feeling that in a certain way. And so the point is to, while sweeping, is to do it with our whole being as throwing ourselves into it. And that will start to kind of align our whole being more like an arrow of intensity into what we're doing. And that will start to create a, what they call one-pointedness. And that will feel energized. And so these physical practices, actually, they're this laboratory to bring ourselves into oneness with what we're doing. So like in the monastery, the Rosh would always say, when sleeping, when sweeping, only sweeping, washing dishes, only washing dishes, cooking rice, only washing rice. You're throwing your whole being into this, and your whole persona starts to unify, and then all of a sudden I'm not tired anymore. I'm with Genki. I'm energized, and so I just maybe what I can see maybe is finding a way to throw ourselves 100% into the activities that will create a type of unification of our being into what we're doing. Okay. A sublime example of this is like the calligraphy here on the wall. Okay. This is actually, like, calligraphy is actually an expression of unified energy. So what the calligrapher is really doing is they're expressing their whole being through the movement. So if you theoretically analyzed the molecules in the calligraphy, they would be going in one direction. That's the story. So they use the calligraphy as a way to express this one pointedness. So that's what it's really about. And that's what a lot of the physical aspects are in the monastery. You start to be able to bring everything into what you're doing physically. And then you're Genki. You're more and more Genki. Maybe. Sound good?
thank you.
Yep.
Cool.
Right. Oh.
Oh, did you have a?
I just had a little comment on that because I feel like that activity, like those kind of mundane chore-like activities, are some of the ones that were the most transformative in my training. And this opportunity that I found, like, to make it interesting, you know, because it could be really boring. It could be just really, I have to clean my room, I'm gonna do it, but I'm really thinking about something else, and everything's kind of dissatisfying. I don't want to do it. But if you use it as like an experiment to be like, how do I throw myself completely into this activity? What is it like to feel the bubbling well, you know, in my feet? What is it like to try to use my tanden, like while doing this thing that I might otherwise be kind of bored by? So it's kind of like, it makes it feel like an experiment or a game or kind of this, you know, testing out ground. So maybe that can bring energy too.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Love it. Let's see what Chris said real quick. Can be a boost to your practice rather than a hindrance, because you will have to remain very aware and present to balance and shifts, instability, etc. Beautiful. Love it. Dozo, Aaron, please.
Yeah. So we're at time. Really great session, great Q&A. I really like this one. So I just have a couple notes about Dharma Gates and about supporting Corey and supporting this work. And also I'll be on the call for a few minutes after if anybody wants to hang out and talk more about, you know, anything that came up or ask about Dharma Gates or anything else that feels relevant. So, you know, this project is a 501c3. We're supported by donations, and I think a lot of Corey's work is also supported by donations or is very sliding scale. And so we just encourage you, if you're a person with resources, to contribute somewhere. I'm not going to tell you to contribute to Dharma Gates or to Corey, but you're welcome to put it where you're called to, and also to check out Corey's, you know, work. He teaches classes like this 5 days a week. It's a pretty prodigious amount of online instruction, and a number of the folks in this session are regulars there, and it's a great little community. I've been doing it for the last month, so definitely recommend checking that out. And yeah, we'll have some more events later this month. You guys are all on the newsletter now. You're welcome to unsubscribe if that's not what you're about, but you will hear some updates about our retreats and events later in the month. With a couple, we have one half-day retreat with a Buddhist nun from Ontario, Theravada tradition, and then a few other things. I won't go into too much detail, but they're cool, they're exciting, and yeah, we'll just leave it there. You're welcome to stay on.
Thank you so much for having me, and so great to hang out with you all for a little bit here. I really appreciate you sticking with it. Okay, really a great pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Corey.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you. Thank you, Aaron,
Thank
for the
you.
organization.
Mhm.
Thank you.